Hi there, welcome to a new episode of An Ordinary Review with PJ. Before I get into the episode, let me take off my mask. This mask has become so ubiquitous with the pandemic, and we got so used to it that nowadays if I step out without a mask, I almost feel naked. But that's what it is. It has protected us from the deadly virus for 2 years. And I still believe that if you're stepping out into a crowded place, please do not forget to wear the mask. The virus variants are still around, and it makes all the more sense to protect yourself by masking yourself. Today is a special episode. It's a book review episode, and I'm going to review the book by Barkha Dutt on COVID. It's called Humans of COVID to Hell and Back. This book is all about what happened in these 2 years of pandemic in India. How the pandemic affected millions of people in our country. We've all gone through this tough 2 years, and almost everyone has been touched by the virus in some way or the other. Some of us have got infected and have recovered, thankfully. Many of the people have lost their family members or friends or colleagues. So in some way, this virus has affected almost every human being. Nobody has been left untouched. And that's the impact this virus actually had on humanity. Now, many of us, when this pandemic struck us, thought that the virus is a great leveler. Whether you're rich or poor, it doesn't matter. As long as you're human, you're going to get infected and you can suffer. But was it really like that? Did the pandemic play out as a great leveler? As you read this book, you realize it was not so. Some of us who have been privileged welcomed the break that we got because of the virus, as we could stay at home with our family and possibly think that life needed to slow down. We got quality family time, and we were lucky and privileged to get the attention that we needed when we were trying to battle the virus. But many people were not lucky. And that's exactly what this book covers. As you read through this book, as you go chapter by chapter, you realize the impact pandemic had on the poor people, the rural people, and the people who were not privileged. How the first wave impacted the migrants. The lockdown was announced, and all of us welcomed the break of traffic and commute to office and sitting at home and having the ability to work from home. Many of us who work in the tech sector and other industries who could manage their work by working from home. But that was not the case for thousands of people who work on daily labor. They got stuck, they had no support to take care of them, and they wanted to go home. And we read through all the news, we saw a lot of TV news around that time, how migrants were struggling to go home. I witnessed it there's a police station very close to me, and there were long queues of migrants trying to get into the bus. Police was basically trying to handle them, get into the bus so that they could go home. It was a very difficult time. But the real impact of that migrant thing is what you actually read through this book and you realize. Because this book actually is not about the incidents. It's not about the statistics. It's not about what we have seen or heard in the pandemic. It's about the human stories that Barkha Dutt has been able to get by meeting people, by understanding their pain, and by trying to understand what they're going through as they went through trying to handle the pandemic. As you move on, you get to understand the frontline workers, the terrible time that they were going through, where many of them felt that this is a never-ending saga. How they got exhausted, how they were finding it very difficult to operate, but making sure that they're doing their best to save human lives, using those PPE kits and stuff like that. Even in fact, the PPE kits were not available in the beginning, and how they struggled. Many doctors lost their lives. The book touches upon stories where during the second wave, how oxygen became such a dire commodity. We have all taken air for granted. We breathe air and we feel comfortable. But the virus and the pandemic showed that the very same air that we breathe can be so lethal, where you actually can run out of breath. The second wave was so fearful that the biggest fear was not about getting infected. The biggest fear was that if you get infected, you may not get a hospital bed. And we have heard and we have known stories about our colleagues and friends who lost their family members breathing out because they could not get the hospital bed to recover. So the book touches upon human stories on that. The book touches upon how children suffered the most in this pandemic. They lost schools where they could go and make friends. They could learn using the community learning by being in schools. How they struggled at home. How rural children struggled a lot more. How child marriages started increasing because parents were worried about what to do with their girls sitting at home. Those kind of problems. So the book, in my view, is a great read because it really shows you the impact of pandemic that has been there in our country on normal human beings, on common human beings, and how these stories affect you as you read them. They are very moving. In many stories have a lot of moving incidents. Some will tear you up, but it also will make you think and reflect that this pandemic was not easy. We have learned a lot through this pandemic as a country. We have tried to improve. We have had a vaccination drive. We have tried our best to make sure that our health infrastructure improves. A long way to go, and I'm sure as a country we will learn and we will keep doing and keep trying to be better. The book also shows the hope, how people came together to help out during this time, how the ingenuity of human mind can figure out solutions during dire circumstances. How the vaccines, which normally take 5 to 10 years to come out, were developed in 2 years. They're not perfect, but they help. And they're really helping now. And I'm sure as time goes by, they will improve. How medicines came out to take emergency care, although there are side effects of the medicines that had a huge impact. But overall, if you really see, when we are faced with a huge crisis, humanity has a way to find answers. And this book also talks about that. So I would say this is a book that everyone should read. Not because you may agree or don't agree with Barkha Dutt's views. I know people have, extreme reactions to her views. But one thing you have to give credit to her. She's a journalist par excellence. She's a journalist who believes in getting you the story by being on the ground. She has stories to talk and tell you because she has actually met these people and she's been able to understand their pain. And you can feel that pain as you read through this book. You can also feel her stories as you go and listen to her book reading sessions. I would recommend that if she's in your city coming for a book reading session and a book signing session, please do attend. Because it's not about attending a Barkha Dutt session, it's about understanding the impact of pandemic on our country through her. Barkha Dutt is an intrepid journalist. She has always gone to the most difficult challenges to report and give you the news. Whether it was the Kargil war, whether it was the Mumbai 26/11 attacks, and now the pandemic. So you have to really give credit for her courage to step out and face the challenge and bring us the stories that will affect all of us and make us learn and think hard as to how we need to take care of ourselves and humanity in general as we move forward. So the book is called Barkha Dutt, Humans of COVID to Hell and Back. I would strongly recommend that you should read this book. And also, if you want to know more about Barkha Dutt, there is an episode by Amit Varma on his all-time popular podcast called The Seen and the Unseen. It's episode number 243 called the Barkha Dutt Files. Very fascinating episode. I think you should definitely listen to her because you will get to understand Barkha Dutt as a person by listening to that episode. And it will make you, appreciate a lot more of what she really does on a daily basis. She is a tireless woman. She's a workaholic. But her passion to go and face the challenge and find out what is really happening on the ground, find out those human stories that will make people understand the gravity of the problem. I think she's par excellence on that. So great kudos to her, I think, for writing this book. It's a fabulous book. I would strongly recommend, please do buy one and read it. And if you do get a chance to attend her book reading session, it's very fascinating to hear her talk about these stories as she also reflects on the pandemic in those sessions. Thank you so much for listening to my reviews and also subscribing to my channel. My reviews are also available on Apple Podcast and Spotify if you want to listen in while you go out for a walk. If you want to see the reviews, you can also subscribe to my YouTube channel, An Ordinary Review, and listen in and see my reviews. Please do share your feedback, and on the podcast, if you can give a 5-star rating, it will help others discover my reviews. I look forward to bring more interesting reviews for all of you. Till next time, bye-bye.